All right, so let's talk a little bit more in detail of a relative max and a relative min. Now, relative max and relative mins are not going to include our end behaviors, because in these cases these are going to be extremes, but they're going out to infinity. What we're really going to be concerned about are these different turning points in the graph. So as I'm coming left to right, there's a turning point here, so that's going to be some sort of relative max or relative min. And as I follow, there's another turning point here, what we call a change in concavity. This is going to be another relative max, relative min. Now, the way that you can actually figure this out is we're going to look at these points. So I have a point here and a point here. These are the absolute highest points or the lowest points, well, in the curves. I'm going to look to the left and to the right of this point. And just by looking at it, you should get a pretty good feel of it. And these other numbers that are around this point are numbers that are in the neighborhood of that point. It just makes sense because it's close to it. It's in the neighborhood. And for a relative minimum, which is what this is at this point is going to be lower than all the other points that are directly around it or in its neighborhood. So in this case, if this is point, let's call this x sub 1, y sub 1, this would be a relative minimum. So a relative minimum. And really, with the graph, they're really easy to see what a relative minimum is. Later on, I will show you a little bit on how you can find it algebraically, but it's significantly harder for pre-calculus to find these algebraically. So a relative minimum, if you look at a point and you look at the points to the left and to the right of it, and if those points are greater than that point at that one point where you're looking at, then it's going to be a relative minimum. So the same thing here for a relative max. We'll call this one x sub 2, y sub 2. I'm going to look to the left and I'm going to look to the right. And if the point at that point where it changes, where the slope is going to be what we call 0, if all the points surrounding it or in the neighborhood are actually less than it, and that's the absolute highest point with just these points around it in its neighborhood, that's going to be a relative maximum. Not really difficult to figure out with a graph. In fact, it's very easy because you're just looking, is it increasing then decreasing? Because that's a relative maximum. If it's decreasing then increasing, that's going to be a relative minimum. Not terribly bad at all. Hi, I'm Mr. Buzzard, and these videos are supplemental instruction for my students. If you found the video enjoyable, make sure you click the like button and click subscribe, as well as the bell for notifications to receive future videos on high school mathematics.